Hey everybody, it's Dan. Um, yeah, it sure has been a while, I know. Um, Long enough for me to get this and everything. But today I just kind of wanted to, I felt like making a quick video, maybe not too quick because I'll probably ramble, not about a particular film, but rather about, several things that were all made by the same creator. Um, And this creator is actually somewhat divisive, I've noticed. There, you know, there are people I know who absolutely love him and swear by like everything that he's ever made. And there are people I know, on the other hand, who just absolutely despise everything that has to do with him. And I'm not really sure why. I mean, he has made some things that I thought were not very good, or at least not my kind of thing. But then he's made some things that were really, really outstanding too. And the person in question, the creator, is J.J. Abrams. Okay, now Felicity. We'll start there. That was really his first like big break on everything. Not my kind of thing. I've actually never watched it. I don't know anybody else who has really. If you have and you enjoyed it, leave some comments down below. Let me know what it is and whether or not it's actually worth a watch. That's Felicity. I don't know. It didn't seem like my kind of thing at the time, so I didn't bother watching it. Um, but since that time, he's really branched out and done some incredible things, in my opinion. But then some things that are kind of give and take too. Like I'm in neither camp. I'm not in the I absolutely love every single thing that he does camp, and I'm not in the I absolutely despise the guy camp. Um, I am neither. I'm kind of right in the middle. I guess maybe over this way a little bit more because I do genuinely enjoy quite a bit of the things that I've seen that he has made. But there have been some things that, whatever. Take, for example, um, Alias. Alias isn't bad. Um, I mean, it's actually a pretty decent show overall, I guess, if you take everything into consideration. All, I believe, 5 seasons there were. And it's about this gal who, you know, becomes like a secret agent and a spy and everything. And there's all these, interesting gadgets and various, disguises and crazy things that are used throughout the whole series. And her father, if I remember correctly, was, a spy working for another organization that was against the one that she was working for. Overall, it was pretty interesting, but there were points where it really kind of dragged, and they were like, you could kind of tell that they just stopped coming up with ideas and tried to like drag things out as long as possible. Um, but I mean, it's not terrible, but it's definitely not my favorite thing in the world. Um, Now, his next real big thing that he worked on that I can recall anyway was Lost. Lost was a huge phenomenon. Everybody loved Lost. Everybody was curious. I mean, and the thing about Lost is that I will say that it was good because it kept people guessing, it kept people questioning things, it kept people interested because they wanted to know more of what was going on because it was a very slow burn. Um, they really didn't do much, um, between each episode, and all they really did was just kind of compound, question after question after question after question. Who is this guy? What is that thing? What's this hatch? Sitting in the ground, like all of this stuff. What is all of this for? Why are they on this island? What is going on this island? This island is crazy. Um, and overall, again, I guess I would say it was pretty decent. Certainly not my personal favorite, but not terrible. Um, However, the important thing to note is that it lasted for 6 seasons. The first 3 seasons I thought were incredible. They kept me glued to the screen the whole time, wondering what was going on. But here's the thing: after the third season, J.J. Abrams stopped working on it. He decided to go off and pursue other things, and he left it in the hands of Damon Lindelof, who destroys everything that he touches. I mean, he's absolutely terrible. Take, for example, World War Z with Brad Pitt. So the original story behind that actually involves Matthew Fox, who played Jack in Lost. There's a very brief scene where they get saved by some, you know, uh, soldiers in a helicopter, and you can kind of see, like, for a split second at least, this guy who's grabbing them by the hand and pulling them up on the helicopter. It's like, oh hey, he kind of looks like Jack from Lost. Well, it was Jack from Lost. Um, it was Matthew Fox, and it seemed strange to me watching that movie at the drive-in. Uh, why would they have him in there in such a tiny little, I mean, he was on for maybe a couple of seconds. He wasn't that important at all. Well, it turns out that the original story involved much more of him. Um, when Brad Pitt takes off to another country, one of those Eastern European countries or whatever, to try to get the cure or whatever it was, to help this out and everything. Um, I guess he ends up stuck there for quite a while, and he has this radio that just stops working. He can't contact anybody. He can't let them know that his from what I recall reading the information on the original story, his mission was a failure. Actually, he did not succeed. Um, and when he finally manages, I mean, it's like 6 months later or whatever, to get in contact with the U.S., his wife turns out, she's with uh, Matthew Fox's character, because they just assumed that he was dead. So, what are you going to do? Your husband's dead, you move on. And then also, they talk about how, like, society has changed and now you have to use, whatever skills you have to get whatever you want. And apparently the only skill his wife had was that she has a vagina. And so she used that and, hoard herself out to people. And, that's how she obtained goods and various things like that to survive, whatever. But you saw probably, most of you, World War Z, either in the theater or on home video. And yeah, the result of turning it over to Damon Lindelof because they thought that the ending was very, kind of a downer. Um, well, you saw the movie ended up turning into complete and utter garbage. I mean, it's a chore to watch that film. And the other thing too is that, like, Brad Pitt in the original story, I guess, ended up joining up with the Russian military and everything, and eventually manages to at the end basically storm the shores of America, like killing off zombies like D-Day. And that was where it was going to, stop in like kind of a cliffhanger type thing, and there was going to be a second film. Well, that's never happening because since they turned it over to Damon Lindelof, it sucked, and nobody wants to see a second film. So there's that. But anyway, that doesn't have anything to do with J.J. Abrams. That's just one of my personal gripes. Um, he turned Lost over to Damon Lindelof, and also had Brian K. Vaughan writing a lot of the scripts. And Brian K. Vaughan is he's pretty well known in the comic book industry. His current comic book is Saga, that he's working on, and that's apparently done really really well. And a lot of the things that he's done have done really really well. Ex Machina was a fantastic story. Why the Last Man, which you see several issues of Why the Last Man kind of pop up in the last three seasons of Lost. Usually, the big guy, I can't remember his name, Hurley, is reading them. But anyway, um, he can write a great story, and he can make a good beginning. He can make a good, middle, but he cannot end a story to save his life. Everything that I've read of his has been great right up until the ending, and then he just kind of gives up and says, okay, well, now it's, 20 years into the future, and this is the result of, all of these things that just suddenly stopped dead right here. We're moving on now. It's just, I don't know, that seems to be his MO. He cannot finish a story to save his life. And that's why really the last three seasons of Lost were terrible. Um, but moving on, there was, of course, Cloverfield, which I thought was a fantastic movie. A lot of people didn't like it. They said it made it sick. It made them sick, with the camera shaking and everything like that. And also the ending was kind of a downer, but that's sort of why I enjoyed it, because you don't see a film very often with an ending that's a downer. They typically tend to change that up. Um, I don't know. Sometimes you can have a movie that ends on a down note. Just look at Empire Strikes Back, which will bring me to something else a little bit later. Um, but anyway, I'm trying to think here. The next thing I know was Fringe, and Fringe, the television series, lasted 5 seasons. And personally, I think my personal. I would have to say either my favorite or second favorite television series of all time. It's kind of a toss up between that and the remade, reissued Battlestar Galactica that was on Sci-Fi Channel. Everything that Sci-Fi Channel does now is garbage, but that Battlestar Galactica show, that was amazing. And Fringe was a lot like, it had a very X-Files feel, which was why I thoroughly enjoyed it. Because I loved the X-Files when I was a kid. I thought that was a fun show. And it was neat how, much like how X-Files would sometimes do, like, Monster of the Week sort of stories, and then other times they do stories that, like, sort of melded into the main, overarching plot of the entire series. Fringe did that as well, and it did it fantastically. And the nice thing about it was that, unlike Lost, which got really confusing and left you questioning things, this one really didn't. I mean, there were points where it sometimes did, but apparently he and several of the other writers for the show decided to basically test it on like their parents and other older folks, and they figured, okay, if they can understand it, if they can at least get what's happening, then we can put this show on the air, and everybody should be able to get it. So it's not nearly as confusing, and it involves a whole lot of neat, interesting, weird, crazy, kooky science. Walter Bishop, played by John Noble, who is by far one of the greatest characters I've ever seen on a television series. He's phenomenal. He's hilarious, and then also there are points where he's very serious and heartwarming, and just a fantastic character. But then I guess that pretty much brings us to well, okay, there was 10 Cloverfield Lane, which was really really fantastic, and thought it was a great story. It was an excellent idea. You have no idea throughout the whole thing whether all of this stuff that John Goodman's character is saying about what's going on outside is true. And he plays this like absolutely frightening guy. You don't know if he's a good guy, a bad guy, nothing. And then eventually things get cleared up, and it's really really awesome. John Goodman deserves 20 awards for his performance in that. I've never seen him do a character like that before. It was amazing. So yeah, that's another great thing that came out of J.J. Abrams. But now we're going to get to Star Wars. Well, actually, let's back up and do Star Trek real quick here, because he was in charge during the first, I believe, two more recent Star Trek films that had Chris Pine in them. And not having been much of a Star Trek fan in the past. I mean, I enjoyed the original series when I was very young. They would have two, syndicated episodes back to back at night, like, as I was going to bed and I had a little black and white TV and I would turn it on and, we were poor. Little black and white TV, I would turn it on to, I believe it was Fox 39, and they would play two episodes of the original series back to back. And at first I thought it was really dumb, but eventually I kind of started to grow into it and enjoy it. And it was the only thing that was on, for a couple hours as I was laying in bed, going to sleep for school the next day. But it turned out, to be something I ended up enjoying. And then they switched it up and did one episode of the original series and one episode of The Next Generation. And I thought The Next Generation was dumb, but again, it kind of started to grow on me. And then they just took the original series off entirely, and it was just two episodes back to back in syndication of The Next Generation. And, I ended up kind of liking that. And I've never seen much more Star Trek aside from, I actually really enjoyed.